welcome to Anne-Marie's Workshop. My name is Anne-Marie, and I love to make things with joy. If you like to make things with joy, please like, subscribe, and share. Now, today is a sew-along video or a make video. I've had quite a few people request and ask me, how do I make the crinolines that go along with the dresses that are removable? All right, so I wanted to show you my process. So I'm gonna have to do a few things first to get ready. Now, if you're intending on making a crinoline insert for a wrap skirt or a skirt, that might be a slightly different process. So if you look at my Sew Reversible Challenge wrap skirt, you'll see how to insert one in that kind of skirt. But what I'm going to show you today is if you have any kind of a skirt that's attached to a bodice or has a zipper coming part way down, because you have to make allowances on the crinoline for the zipper if it extends into the skirt compared to something that's just attached at the waistband. All right, so let me show you what I mean. Because there's no zipper in this wrap skirt, I was able to enclose the crinoline tape on the inside of this skirt all the way across. Right? See, here it is inside. Now in this case, this dress has a zipper that extends beyond the waistband of this dress. So we have to make an accommodation for that crinoline to tuck in around this zipper that's in this dress. Now sometimes things go awry. I ordered yellow and green brilliant web to use in my dress, and I must not have checked correctly because I ended up buying tulle, which is this soft lovely net, but it's not going to give me the big bang that I need it's going to be a softer crinoline. That's not what I'm looking for. So I went to Ping's today because I want to have this video done for Saturday, I mean, and I ended up getting some white mesh and some black mesh from Ping's. Uh-oh, hold on. It's in here somewhere, y'all. Yeah, I see it. So I got white and black mesh that will work to help pump up my tulle. But you can have whatever you'd like. I will show you an example of the difference in textures. This is a crinoline made with mostly mesh, no tulle. And this is a dress made with a combination of mesh and tulle. You can see that the one with the tulle is a bit more romantic. It's softer. It has that kind of whimsical fluttering effect, while as the other one has more pow. So let me show them to you up close. This crinoline is made with just mesh. You can already tell it's got attitude. All right, it's got attitude, and it's firmer, and it will push the dress out further. Now, this one is a combination. This is the effect of the tulle. All right, this is the mesh underneath the bottom, firmer, harder, and this is the softness of the tulle on top of it. Now, the combination is your choice. I try and use up stuff that I have in my stash, and the reason this is a combination tulle one, even though it's turned out to be such a delight, is because I was using up things that I had inside of my, in my stash. I'm not sure how this is going to go. This is a bigger mesh than I've ever used. We'll see, but we'll see how the combination goes. But it's the technique that's important. It's the technique that's important. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to construct the crinoline band. That's one half is going to go inside the dress, and the other half is going to be a separate tape that you're going to add to the top of your crinoline. Now, I'm using this wonderful, like 1 inch wide, double folded bias tape, but you can also use the single sided bias tape, but you would have to fold it over and stitch it to create a tape to support the casing. So I measured the circumference of the dress waist twice. And still be open to when you insert it in the dress, but sometimes it will not measure up, but this is a learning exercise. All right, so let's see. There, I gave myself a little extra, and I'm gonna cut it right here. Now you can use your own homemade bias tape. I just happen to have this wheel of bias tape that I got from Amazon because I use this a lot for the quilts I make, and I have one coming up, so I happen to have it. It will not miss that little bit that I took from it, I hope. Now, for instance, if you have this type of bias tape where it is a single fold on each side, and maybe it even looks like this, you can press it open, and then you can stitch one side of the bias tape. You can stitch it on one side all the way down and leave this side open, which you're going to press open, and it will give you the same effect as this. Just something firm that can hold your tape. Now I happen to use this hook and eye tape set on this nice twill from Ping's. Now I think it would be quite an undertaking to stitch these on individually, but it can be done. I will check and put some suppliers below to see if you needed to buy hook and eye tape. All right, so what I'm going to do is, on my double fold tape that I've measured out to the width of the waist of the dress, I am going to press open these two ends, all right, and leave the fold in place. I'm going to press it, and then I'm going to add my tape. All right, so now on the edge that's folded, I am going to secure my eye section of my hook and eye tape that I'm going to come along later, and I suggest you use a zipper foot to sew this on so that you have enough space with your presser foot to come all the way down. So I'm just going to pin this in place and then go over it with a stitch. Now look, make sure that you have your eyes cupping down, because you're gonna on the skirt, you're on the crinoline skirt, you're gonna add the tape with the hooks, because you want your, for instance, you want your skirt to hang on to it like this. So don't make a mistake and stitch it upside down. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. Now that we've secured that, we're going to put this to the side, and we're going to start working on the petticoat. Now, the great part about creating the crinoline skirt is that you already have the skirt, the petticoat pattern included in your dress pattern because you're going to use the same skirt to create your petticoat. All right, so the only thing that you're going to have to figure out is how much tulle that you want to have showing underneath your skirt. Do you want it to extend further than the skirt, or do you want it just to be at the edge suggesting? So on the skirts that I've made in the past, this has been the line in which I wanted to cut off to make the petticoat, because I was putting a crinoline of about this width hem, gathered hem at the bottom here. Okay, so let me go over that again. You're going to use the same pattern that you use to make the skirt of your dress to make your petticoat. All right, so the only thing you're going to have to figure out is how far down you want the petticoat section to be and how far down you want the netting and tulle to extend on your dress. In this case, I wanted my tulle to measure about 8 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about so. So I marked off along the edge of my skirt where I wanted to cut my petticoat. Okay? All right, so I'm going to cut my petticoat sections out that make up the dress. In this case, this one has a front and a back that's cut, I believe, in 4 quarters. All right, so I will show you what we do with that when I get to that stage. I'm sorry, I was mistaken. This pattern, the front of the skirt is cut on the fold. Now I know what you're thinking. What? All right, so when you cut out your petticoat, you're going to leave 7, 6, 5 inches off of the bottom of the skirt to accommodate where your mesh, tulle, and net is going to be gathered and be placed on there. So when it is time for you to figure that out, you might want to cut yourself out a muslin of the full-size skirt and then go back and measure the distance that you want to put at the bottom. So for instance, suppose I wanted to make my crinoline 5 to 6 inches, and I only wanted to take 5 or 6 inches off the hem of this skirt. Rather than eyeballing it, which some sewists can do because of all the years of experience, I would take my ruler and I would go along the edge, say 5 inches in this case, and I would make dots, you know, spaced pretty evenly. Okay guys, let's go with 6 inches because I have a lot of tape right there. So I make a dots along the skirt, how many inches I wanted around it. And then that way, when I got to the other end of the skirt, I could join the dots and I would get an approximate line on which to cut my skirt, and it would be pretty even all the way around, which is pretty much how I did this one up here for the 8 inches. So I would do that all the way around the length of the skirt, and that way I would be able to predict where the edge of that petticoat was going to be cut. Now when it comes time to cut the petticoat out of the fashion fabric, if you decided not to make a toile, then it might be in your best interest to actually cut the skirt along this cutting line of your pattern, because you can always go right back before you even move and tape it back in place. In other words, so if I decided that I was going to cut, this is the edge I'm going to cut, which it was, I could actually cut this paper part of my pattern piece so I don't make any mistakes, come back with my tape before I separate it and tape it back in place. So that way I'd have the full pattern as well as my petticoat cut to the right length. All right, so this is the back of my skirt where the zipper is inserted. So I am going to stitch my sides of my skirt to the front of the skirt and leave this back piece where the zipper goes. I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to leave this side open because it'll be easier for me to construct this crinoline in one smooth sheet rather than having it already in a tube. Now here's where I might mess with my math people or people who don't care for math. Now I'm trying to figure out my widths and how do I have enough fabric that I buy enough tulle mesh to make my crinoline luscious. So I measured the diameter of my skirt and it is 180 inches. Okay, so I want to have an 8-inch frill so that it extends just a little bit below my skirt. Just a little bit of a show. So I know that I can cut 4 8-inch lengths out of 1 yard of mesh or tulle. But that's only going to give me, let's see, 4 times 40, 160, 4 times 6, 24. That's going to give me 140, 244. I think I'm going to need a little bit more. So luckily I had bought 1.5 yards, so that I will be able to cut out 5 8-inch lengths of 45-inch wide tulle and mesh. And let's hope it all works out. Now here's where it can become a little tedious. We're going to have to stitch light colors end to end, and then we're going to gather. I'll lead you along. Your color gradations are completely up to you. Like I said, I would like my tulle, my green and yellow, because I have so little of it and it's so soft. I'd like it to be on the top and then at the bottom, and I would put my firmer nets in the middle. So there's going to be black in the center, 2 layers of black, 2 layers of white, then my yellow and green. Once I line my my layers together and trim away all the excess from the seam allowances, I'm ready to stitch down one side of the mesh because it'll be easier to handle. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to place my gathering stitches in. Make sure you break up your gathering stitches. Don't just sew from one end to the other on a wide stitch. It can break, it can be very frustrating. So maybe every yard, stop, pull out some threads, snip, and then gather. It also helps to have a heavier thread in the bobbin with which you can help pull these layers together. to here comes the fun part. It's time to gather all of this crinoline and attach it to the skirt. Okay, so now my crinoline is gathered and pinned in place and is going to be attached to the hem of my petticoat. Now you might need some room around your sewing machine because as you can see, it's quite a lot. Well, you see now the crinoline is attached to the bottom of the skirt. It's time to add the tape of the other hook and eye, this time the hooks, facing up to the skirt. In order to do that, you have to make another band to support it. Gather your skirt to match the waist measurement that you took, and then attach the hook and eye tape to the bias tape base that you've used to hold in place. Now, I attached it to the top of the skirt, and now by hand, I stitched along this edge with my presser foot to attach it. But of course, this part would be flapping in the breeze. So now I'm going back with and hand sewing a tack between each of these parts to hold this in place. Now there are two things to do before I can add the crinoline to the actual dress. First things I have to do is I have to measure from the bodice or the waistband where the zipper is in the back all the way down to the bottom where the zipper ends, so I know where to attach my crinoline to itself to make sure it can accommodate this zipper. So let me walk you through this. First of all, so from the waistband to the tip of the zipper, I'm going to have to allow for that on the side of the crinoline skirt on the center back. So I measured from the top of the tape all the way down to where I made a notch. This is where the zipper comes all the way down here. So I'm going to stitch my crinoline together at that point all the way to the bottom, right? And then that leaves this center back open to allow for the zipper that's already in place, because this is a crinoline we're going to take in and out of the dress at will. Okay, so once I stitch right here, I'm going to finish off these edges by turning them under twice and sewing them. Let me show you what that looks like. So the first thing I sewed from where the zipper would end to the bottom of the crinoline right here. All right, so now normally if this was a part of the dress, this would be where we would be sewing the zipper, but we're not. We are just going to fold over once, fold over again, and top stitch this area right here so that it can be left open to accommodate the zipper that's already in the dress. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so I have double stitched this, rolled it under, so that this is the opening that the zipper normally would fit in. But because we're not adding a zipper, but we're surrounding a zipper, we have to leave an open space to accommodate the zipper that's in the dress, because this is removable. So now this part of your crinoline is done. But now what you have to do, these are the hooks. So now in this pre-made dress, we're going to have to add a strip at the waistband with the eyes in order to support the crinoline inside the dress. And it can be removed or placed inside. Now at this point, this is where the waistband hits the zipper. And that's where we're going to begin attaching the band to the seam allowance. And I'm going to pin it in place, and I'm going to make sure that my eyes are facing down, since my hooks are going to have to hang on this. So I'm going to pin all the way around the waistline of the bodice in the seam allowance that was where the bodice was attached to the skirt. Now remember, we measured this initially, so it should line up, we hope. Okay, so now I have sewn the crinoline band in place. All right, so it's secure, hidden inside the dress. Now I'm going to add the crinoline skirt, and we'll see what it looks like. She's done and she's inside. Now it's time for the fluff to make it even bigger. I'll be back. I hope this made sense to you. This is a removable crinoline put inside of a reversible dress. It is a lot of fun. It's great at parties. It's a wonderful date. I hope you enjoyed this. Sew along. Remember, keep sewing. Make yourself happy.